Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Senagameli Podcast Live. I hope that you are fine. So, I chose that title precisely, and as you can imagine, we're going to talk about African prints, African fabrics, African clothes. And I'm sure that many of you noticed that for the few past years, African fabrics, African clothes became very popular, whether in Africa, whether in Europe, whether in the US, whether in Canada, whether everywhere in the world. But what I'm going to do is we need to rethink the way that we see these fabrics. Why? Because these fabrics, these African prints, so-called African prints, do not benefit us as African. And this is what I'm going to explain. I'm not going to insult people that wear these fabrics. I'm not going to discredit these fabrics. I'm just going to talk the facts. So, we need to go back to the facts. We need to go back to the history of these fabrics. So the history takes us back in the 19th century when Ashanti soldiers who were recruited by Dutch and sent to fight in Indonesia. So as they get in Indonesia, they noticed that there was a fabric which is called the batik, which is a fabric that is dyed. And when they came back to Africa, when they came back to actual Ghana, they brought those fabrics with them. And the people back in Africa, back in Ghana, really really liked these fabrics. And then the Dutch people had something in mind. They realized that they could make money by manufacturing these fabrics, by producing these fabrics. And that's how they started to build factories back in Holland or in Deutschland. In Holland. And that's how they started this business. And with the years going, this industry, Africans were really receptive, and this is how the market developed. So, now that we talked about the facts, the history of this fabric, we're going to talk about the issues. And I see two major issues. The first issue is the cultural appropriation. The cultural appropriation, basically, it means that when you take something that is not yours, and that is not from your culture, and you take it as it was yours. So the cultural appropriation is an issue, but to me, in my opinion, is not the major issue. Some would say that these prints are not African, which in a way is the truth. But I want to mention that many of these African prints were inspired. The designs, the drawings, even the shape of the cloth are related to African culture, are related to African tradition. So we need to remember that many Africans, especially women, contributed to the designs, to the styles, to the shapes of this cloth. So in a way, we can say that Africans adapted these fabrics to their own perspective, to their own culture. And if we take that aspect, in a way, we can say that these fabrics are African in a way, but only partially. And then we're going to step into the second issue. And the second issue, in my opinion, is the real issue, and that's the economic aspect, the economic facts. The truth is, we don't own the industry, we don't control the industry of these African fabrics. These fabrics are made by the Dutch people, by the English people, by the Chinese people. We only are consumers. We only are all sellers. We do not produce these fabrics, these African fabrics, also called Ankara fabrics. Now, I'm sure that some of you will tell me that what I'm saying is not true, because some companies, whether in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, or in Ghana, manufacture these fabrics. If we take the example of Uniwax in Cote d'Ivoire or GTP in Ghana, yes, but these companies are subsidiaries companies, which means that they belong to the Dutch group, which name is Vlisco. So these companies, the benefit of these companies, since they are not owned by Africans, we can imagine that all the benefits, all the incomes go back to Holland. So what I'm trying to say is that although these companies contribute to creating jobs in Africa, it is not enough, because these companies are not African and the benefits go back to the stakeholders in Holland. So we need to take that economic aspect very seriously, because if we talk about development, we need to think about economic aspects, and we need to produce our own stuff. And if we take other examples as cocoa, which is produced mainly by Ivory Coast and Ghana, we don't transform the product here in Africa. Most of the product that we have is sent to Europe, is sent abroad, and is transformed there before coming back to us. Though this is the issue. We only produced the raw materials, and these materials are sent away. And this is the problem we have. We don't have an industry. And that is killing us. That is making us staying behind. And this is basically what I'm saying. So I mentioned the economy, but we also need to talk about strategy. And this strategy is when you are a Pan-Africanist, or when you really like Africa and you want Africa to go forward, when you buy something, whether it is food, whether it is clothes, whether it is anything, you need to wonder, where do I put my money? Who is behind this business? Where is my money going to? Is the owner an African? Is the owner an European, a Westerner, a white person, or black person? And some may say that it's radical to do this. But in my opinion, if it is your vision and you talk about Africa every day, you want to, you are complaining that things do not go in Africa, you are saying that you love Africa, that you are proud to be an African, then you need to start to think this way. You really need to think to 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 think this way, because when you look at other communities, and I'm not going to name them here, but when you look at other communities, they will always try to put in first their own community, so the money can circulate into the community. But unfortunately, with us, we don't want to do this work. We are just buying, we are just consuming, and we do not think about strategy. So we need to start buying, purchasing in our own community to promote Africa, to promote our continent. If we don't do so, then others will come and make money and take that money, take our money and become rich, and we always remain poor. Now, I also want to talk about the positive aspects of us buying and purchasing these African fabrics. And I'm going to talk about the designers, the tailors, all these people, because these people actually benefit from these African prints, because when we take these fabrics to them, we are contributing to the economy by creating and maintaining jobs for them. And also, I consider that designers and tailors are artists, and they need to be recognized as artists. So in a way, when we buy these fabrics, we contribute to the economy of the tailors, of the designers. So on this aspect, it is it's beneficial for us. Now we're going to talk about what I call real African fabrics. Real African fabrics, I want us to talk about the kente, which is made by the Ashanti and the Ewe people. I want us to talk about the ndop, which is a fabric made by the Bamileke people of Cameroon. I want us to talk about the manjak fabric by the people of Senegal. I want us to talk about the asho oke made by the Yoruba people of Nigeria. I want us to talk about the nchak made by the Kuba people of Congo. So I want us to talk about the baule textile. So what I'm basically saying is that Africa has a lot of real traditional fabrics. But the issue is the supply and demand. Because when you look at economy works with supplies and demand. But the problem we have is that these fabrics, for most of them, they are expensive fabrics, because traditionally these fabrics were not worn every day by people. These fabrics were worn for special occasions. So this is the issue we have. This is one issue we have. And if we take in consideration all the economic problems in Africa, unfortunately, when somebody is poor, when somebody is struggling every day to get money, when you have fabrics that are cheap, that are made abroad, you would tend to buy these fabrics. And this is what is happening in Africa. Because the market is full of Chinese cheap fabrics and foreign cheap fabrics. And also, we also have the English fabric and the Dutch fabric. But in term of supplies, even for somebody that is willing to buy African prints, depending in the country where you are, sometimes it's difficult for you to find real African fabrics. Why? Because foreign fabrics, what I call fake African fabrics, are everywhere on the market and they are cheaper. So this is why we need to think, or we need to change our mentality. I know that, as I said earlier, if we take in consideration the economic problems, we cannot blame people who struggle to make money every day to buy cheaper fabrics. But I'm saying that if we have this mind of Pan-Africanism, if we have the wish to make Africa better, we need to start buying and consuming from local production. We need to buy our own stuff. And I'm talking about clothing, but we can also talk about food. Many of the food that we eat is not made in Africa. We are buying it from abroad. And sometimes when we think about it, it's like we are being fooled. We are being used. People only want to be richer and they want us to remain poor. And if we don't sacrifice ourselves, then we never go forward. What I'm saying is that some people, when we talk about vests, costumes, shirts, I mean Western outfits, they don't mind buying these outfits. Some of these outfits cost hundreds of dollars, hundreds of euros. But when it comes to African, real African fabrics, they say it's too expensive. They find many excuses not to buy African real fabrics. They say, oh, these fabrics are for villagers. These fabrics are for old people. We don't want to wear these African fabrics. So if we don't change our mentality, then we always remain behind. And this also includes, as I said, to sacrifice ourselves. And the type of sacrifice that we can make is that instead of buying three foreign fabrics, instead we only buy one African fabrics. One real African fabric. Any type of fabric, as long as it is made, as long as it is produced in Africa. So this is what I'm saying. I know that some of you will tell me that many Africans became millionaires, became billionaires by importing these African prints, or so-called African prints, buying from China, buying from Europe. But what I'm saying is that, and I'm going to give you an example. If I take Togo, which is my country of origin, in Togo we have what we call the Nanabens. Nanabens were market women who use or who still import and buy in bulk fabrics from China, from Europe, to sell in Africa. And historically, they were the first people in Togo to bring Mercedes car. So they became billionaires with trading these fabrics, these African prints. But since in economy, the one or the people who make the more money are the manufacturers, even though these women were making maybe 1 billion or 2 billions, at the same time, the manufacturers, the Chinese manufacturers, the European manufacturers were making maybe 10 billion or maybe even 1 trillion, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that the one that make the more money are in the industry are the manufacturers and not the um, wholesalers or the consumers as we used to do. So we need to change the way that we do things. So I talked about African prints, but I could also talk about brocade. Brocade is another type of fabric that is really popular in Africa, especially West Africa. Its other name is bazin. And African prints and bazin share the same pattern because brocade is made in Europe and is sold in Africa. So we still are consumers, customers, and not manufacturers. But there is one difference. The difference is that brocade is mostly sent in Mali. So when the fabric is sent, people in Mali do the dyeing. And back in the time, they used to do it the traditional way using natural dye to dye the fabric. But now, with money controlling everything and the need to produce more and more quickly, people do use chemicals to dye the fabric. And this became an issue because, first, doing the dyeing is hard work. It's hard work, very, very hard work. And plus, most of the people doing this do not wear protection, and they use chemicals, really, really hard chemicals. So these chemicals can damage their health. So that's the first issue. We can talk about a sanitary issue. The second issue is the environment, because all of these chemicals, how are they treated? A lot of them are thrown in rivers, in lakes, and some of them are thrown directly into the earth. So we can also talk about an environment issue. And I'm going to jump into a question that I've been asking myself for quite a long time. The question is that which kind of development do we want for Africa? Because we are talking about tradition and crafting, and we also talk about industry. So if we talk about industry, we talk about factories. We talk about employees working in these factories. And we will tend to do what is done in Europe, in the West. So this also lead us to a society where capitalism is the king, where money is ruling. And we also will have people working in factories for many hours with a few holidays and with a mindset like modern slaves. I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say. Is that do we want development for Africa the same way that the West did? And if we look at the West, the figures tells us that people in the West are not, or at least for a lot of them, they are not happy in their life because life is too stressful. You know, people have troubles. There is no joy. There is no happiness. There is no everything. There is no nothing. So, if we want to develop Africa this way, in with goals or with a mind that wants to only make money, we're going to get there to this life where people are stressed, where people want to commit suicide, when people are depressed. Is this really what we want? So I'm asking the question, what do you think? How do you see the future of Africa? How do you see Africa developing? That's a real question. Now, if you look at traditional societies in Africa, clothes had a function. Clothing was not about fashion, about the trend, about, okay, I saw a celebrity wearing this cloth, so I want to wear these clothes as well. No, African societies were not about that. And you also didn't have all this marketing trying to make you purchase what you don't want to purchase. Do you get me? So clothing had a function. Whether you were a male had their own type of clothing, women too had their own way of clothing. Kings, queens did not wear the same clothes as other people in society. People in charge of the spirituality, in charge of the cults, had their own clothes. Fishermen had their own clothes. Hunters had their own clothes. So depending on your activity and your social rank in the society, people did not wear the same clothes. And clothing was also used to express feelings. For example, if we take the Ashanti people of Ghana, when there is funerals, the main color used are the black and red colors to remind of death, to remind of the blood, all these things. So dressing had a message, or you could give a message or to express your feelings by wearing clothes. And if you look at the Edinkra cloth, as for the Ashanti people as well, you see that the drawings on the cloth were to express or to tell maybe a message. So clothing was not about the trend, about fashion, but also to express themselves, for people to express themselves and to give message. To conclude, I just wanted to say that I do like African prints, and I have lots of them, but I'm not as proud when I wear them than when I wear my real African cloth, because I know that I want to promote Africa, and promoting Africa is not only by talking on YouTube, it's also by putting your money into things that promote African culture and also African economy. And when I do that, I actually feel very proud because my vision and my action match together. And it is not about talking on YouTube or being a Pan-Africanist on the internet. It's also by doing things to empower Africa. So I hope that you understood my message, and I hope also that you will try to find real African fabrics and purchase them to promote the culture, to promote the economy. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in another podcast. Take care.